Ja, velkommen alle sammen. God morgen og velkommen heter det. Til dette webinaret vi i Digitroll skal arrangere sammen med Hello Retail. Vi er så heldige å ha fått ja fra vår samarbeidspartner Hello Retail for å snakke om hvordan AI kan forbedre nettbutikker. Gjøre kjøpsopplevelsen bedre, og selvfølgelig det eneste vi er opptatt av, og det er mye vi er opptatt av, det er å øke salget i en nettbutikk. Jeg heter Patrick Dahl, holder til i Bergen, Norge. Og jeg skal ikke snakke så mye om Digitroll, for her er det Daniel og Hello Retail som er fokuset. Jeg kan kort fortelle at jeg har blitt ganske god på å lage nettbutikker. Det har vi holdt på med i 25 år. Og våre kunder er alt fra de som selger kulelagre til klær på nett. Vi har ganske bredt kundegrunnlag, og det er absolutt en av våre konkurransefordeler. I København sitter Daniel, og han skal lede oss gjennom dette webinaret. Der er før jeg setter og gir ordet til Daniel, så vil vi gjerne at hvis du har noe på hjertet, har noen spørsmål om underveis i webinaret, og bruke chatten og skrive ned det du lurer på, så tar jeg det underveis og stopper Daniel og kommer med de spørsmålene som måtte komme. Eller du kan også vente til slutt. Vi kommer til å sitte igjen i et par minutter når vi er ferdige, hvis det kommer noen spørsmål. Så da gir jeg ordet til deg nede i København. Du sier at det ikke er vår utenfor vinduet ditt, men kommer vel snart. Vær så god, Daniel.
Thank you, Patrick. And thanks for having me here. I'm really excited to join. I'll be doing or speaking English just to be sure, as Danish is not the easiest language to understand. Unless you guys prefer Danish, to just write in the chat.
Det er lettere enn tyrkisk.
Det got endnu værre. Yeah. So just to be safe, I'll be speaking Danish. And I'll just start off by sharing my screen soon, because or maybe I'll start off by sharing where Patrick left. So I don't know if everybody in the audience heard of Hello Retail, but Hello Retail is a Danish company that's been existing since 2013 and is a personalization provider. And we work mainly in the Nordics and are really close to Digitroll. We share the same values as Digitroll, meaning we have a lot of different type of clients, but also really focus on making sure whoever we work with will be successful utilizing the system. Moving a bit forward to me, I'll just share my screen, actually. Give me a second. So we can see a bit about the agenda and who I am. There. And display. So quickly, a bit about me. I've been with the company since 2020, and I've met with thousands of e-commerce businesses, small to big. And what I hope to be sharing today is actually a bit about the insights of personalization, what's changed during the past 5 years, what was quite often being asked for, and what is actually hitting or the big topics today. What I hope you get out of the webinar is some reflections upon personalization. Maybe you are not working with it and would like to work with it, so hopefully you'll get some insights on what e-commerce businesses are asking for, but it might also inspire you to look at how your competition is working with personalization tools, so that you can see what path you might need to take to win more market share. I plan to actually take you a bit back in time, because just going into advanced AI can be difficult to understand. So I'll try to build some contrast from what happened back then, some years back, versus present will be 5 years back. and how we see future of personalization with AI and how we actually solve it for our clients. As Patrick mentioned, we hope this will be an interactive webinar. We are not that many people in the audience, so if any questions, please don't hesitate. Just chat it, and Patrick will make sure to stop me so we can handle any questions during the webinar or afterward. Patrick, do you have anything you would like to add before we jump off?
I have to unmute myself. Yeah, no, just go on, start, please.
All right,
Daniel.
cool. Sounds good. All right. So the big question: what is personalization? Not sure if the audience feels shy to answer it, but I'll just jump into how I see personalization. What is my perspective on this when it comes to Hello Retail? And quite often, it's back to two different ways of working with personalization. One being the business oriented, which means we working with clients who would like to, just like in the physical store, control the inventory, what type of product is being shown, where is it, the newest items, is it products with high margins, is it a private label, or what's not. And the user oriented will be what type of preferences does the user have who's visiting your site and browsing and clicking at different type of products so that you can show something that might be relevant for the user. So moving a bit forward, I'll actually just go back in time. Imagine everything was black and white. Maybe we're at the 60s or 70s, not sure if it. Just imagine we look at what happened back then when personalization came to life and what was it the customers wanted to achieve from it. Really black and grayish pictures here, but what we saw many years back, or what customers or e-commerce businesses wanted to achieve from simple algorithms was to show, for example, what's being most sold in the category or the product I'm visiting right now, and what categories does it come from. Or if you had a commerce tool where you could manually bundle or show products based on the product you just created, you could also do that. But quite often, the obstacles we saw was it ended up being quite often random products from the same category, as the sorting is just most sold. Or if you are an e-commerce business working with a lot of different type of landing pages, it could be news pages, offer pages, Black Friday, spring sales, or whatnot, we would see really random products being selected. As this is an example of a skirt. On a landing page, you might have t-shirts, dresses, or what's not. So it ended up being not that closely related to the product you're looking at. Hence, it ended up with lost sales or not keeping the user on the page and actually losing sales to other competitors out there. Just to show the contrast in colors, you can see here is not that closely related to the product or the item I'm looking at right now. To take another aspect of what was back then, we also saw a goal of being able to show some cross-selling items, basically what we're used to from the physical stores. But what often happened was if you have an inventory of 10,000 products, you might experience there's not a lot of purchases cross items. So there will be a lack of conversion data to actually fill out this empty space, especially if you're not working with enterprise data. What I mean by that is you have a lot of traffic, a lot of conversions, maybe also a lot of physical stores where you can fetch and utilize the data from the physical stores to show items which is frequently bought together. Another obstacle we saw was every time you had a new item added to the store, or it was a specific expensive item. It could be an iPhone where people maybe just buy an iPhone. It ended up again with lack of behavioral data when it comes to purchases. So we also saw another obstacle. Quite often, many users would ask, how do you handle randomized purchases? That's what we experience quite often, and that's back to what's actually what's the patterns around bought together behavior, where you might want to limit one specific user buying items from many different categories. So to put this to contrast to what happened recently and 7 years back in the Nordics, as we are a bit slow compared to the US, this is actually what's recent in the Nordics and 7 years back was something Amazon already did in the late 90s with the AI, looking at some of the examples I'm going to come through now. Oh, that was too quick. So from just standard algorithms where we are looking at what's being bought together or what's popular items from the category where the product exists, we saw a change in the AI space where you would add a context to it. So the context would be, let's say you're looking at these sunglasses. Now, based on the sunglasses you're looking at, what have other users bought from the same category in the same session or browsed from the same category from the session? So that would be the big change, trying to achieve some of the closely related products that might be relevant. Hence, that's what we see from the physical stores. You are able to, based on what you're looking at, recommend what might be relevant for you because others are looking for it. Another change we saw was back to the customer or business oriented personalization, the need to be able to boost specific items. It could be your private label. For a beauty brand, let's say you are selling L'Oreal shampoo, the first item you want to show is your private label shampoo. So really controlling your inventory to make sure you actually know what's being presented for the users. The last thing would be back to the customer-oriented one-to-one personalization was actually just about utilizing wisdom of the crowd. What are people doing based on what I'm looking at right now? This was not just utilized in recommendation algorithms. It also went to your search when you might be searching for some pants. Now, based on the pants I've been clicking at, what have other people also clicked at, so that you can increase or show some other products when you are doing some broader searches. Now, moving a bit forward to the future and how we see personalization and AI. I would say it's wrong to say AI haven't existed before now, because it always have. Back to Amazon, late in the 90s, we're already utilizing recommendations based on AI. It's the need and the expectations have changed. So instead of just working with standard algorithms, we're seeing the need of more advanced AI. Let's try to put it in contrast to what I just went through before with the present and how that has been evolving. So let's go to this example. Now let's imagine Patrick is visiting a clothing store, and Patrick will be clicking at 2 Adidas t-shirts and 1 pair of Adidas sneakers. So if you're working with a personalization tool, you might be able to say, now, if I recognize Patrick coming back, first show me what he recently clicked at, but also show me some products from the brand Adidas, because that is what Patrick likes. It's back to the obstacles we saw. You might not have enough data. You might have some brands which are so popular where people just buy the one item. So the data density was quite high, and being able to work with more advanced algorithms, we need to take another approach, which I'll touch upon very soon. But the future and the change is, instead of just looking at the specific items Patrick have been clicking at and the one brand, Adidas, we found all of these items actually tell us a bit more about what preferences Patrick might have. It could be, when it comes to the t-shirt, what type of t-shirt is it, what type of material does it have, and what colors go again. Also with the shoes, what type of shoe is it? What color does it come in? Is it a boot? Is it a running shoe? Is it a hiking shoe, etc.? So when we started playing with the advanced AI, which is also referred as hyperpersonalization, we saw when we look at users' preferences, we could actually expand this to many different type of behaviors around specific items. This is a example of, do like this, looking at this is back to the example of Patrick, where instead of just showing popular items from Adidas, we would be able to see, okay, well, based on the t-shirt you've been clicking at, what other users have been clicking at are Puma, Tommy Hilfiger, Nike. So your brand affinity is not just centered around Adidas. What might be relevant for us to recommend Patrick might be these type of t-shirts as possible alternatives or items that might be bought together. And the same goes with the shoes, where we are again expanding your brand affinity around profiles and looking at similarities based on users. And this is kind of bringing me to what Hello Retail believe in and what we've been building for the past 4 years. We call it product intelligence. And instead of just going with what is product intelligence, I think it's relevant to share why we did it. So if we go back in time 4 years, we were in a big kind of dilemma on what should we do about third-party cookies, which was a big topic in e-commerce. And what we found was, instead of doing tracking of users in different ways, it could be fingerprinting or whatnot, we decided, well, there's no legislation around tracking products. So the way we handled it was by looking at the item, so the item's title, the description, the image recognition, and the way a machine understands this is basically looking. A machine doesn't understand stuff like we human beings do, so it's probabilistic. We are converting all of these attributes like image, title, and description to a number, and then we add it on a to a cluster, a plural cluster. So if you could just imagine a universe, if you just look at the stars, you might be seeing some shoes and some T-shirts and maybe some more technical products somewhere else, where we are gathering patterns around them, but also understanding what are you, what color do you have, what brand are you from, what are you used for, is a training shoe, etc. So all of this data is basically gathered around 100 million of SKUs, which is the inventory we have, but we are not tracking the products based on SKUs. When we started off making this AI, we actually tried to take all the SKUs and group them together based on each customer's inventory to see, just to test, do we have enough data? But there was actually not enough data when we only look at the SKU. That's why we went with making big clusters or kind of groups to see what type of patterns exist within these groups of the item you are. And then we can go down to each item and figure out what are you used for, what colors do you have, etc. Moving a bit forward, what does it mean in practice? What it means is we are able to utilize some hyper-personalization algorithms compared to back in time. So back in time, if you had an algorithm saying bought together, you already now and a few years back were able to say it should be frequently bought together before it's relevant to show. Otherwise, you are showing randomized products which is bought together. But back to data density, customers and e-commerce businesses just don't have enough data. There's not enough items which is being bought together. There's new items coming into the store where you have to start over. You might, as a business, want to expand your markets. And if you are present in Norway, you might want to open in Sweden and Denmark. You don't have enough data for the URLs in Denmark and Sweden. So all of this would be come back to like lack of data. How we are able to, in the advanced AI, work with bought together algorithms is going back, look at historically what have people bought with a toothbrush or electric toothbrush, so that we can predict what might be relevant to show, even though you are a new item or you are opening in a new market. Now, transitioning this to hyper-personalization, we also saw some other patterns than just buying something often together. We are looking at when are people buying what next time based on what you recently bought. So that would be the example for purchase next. Instead of just saying, well, somebody bought what do you call it, the cream for your toothbrush.
Tannkrem.
Yeah, 10 claim. Yeah,
Toothpaste.
toothpaste. Yeah, toothpaste. That's correct. So instead of just saying, well, somebody bought 500 times toothpaste, and when we look at the buying patterns, the extra brush heads was bought only 50 times. We're actually reversing this and saying, okay, when you buy an electric toothbrush, when do you buy what? And here we are able to also add a time frame to it. So assuming this is bought in week 1, when would you come back and which range of weeks would you have to show a content or some items that's going to be bought now instead of just looking at the frequency of items being bought together. So let's try to take an example of what often happens, not just on site when you are recommending items, but also now purchase next is most relevant for offline, because you might have converted me where I bought the toothbrush, and now you want me to come back. And now this is another example of items I'll just show. Let's say it could be an abandoned cart where you are adding some recommendations. It could be a newsletter you're sending out to your customers. What we quite often saw, around 70% of the time, what people were recommending their users was just popular items. It's back to we don't have enough data on the user. We don't have enough data on the product which is being bought together, or we are just not using an algorithm that makes sense for us. So instead of just going with popular items or product which is often bought together, we are now able to utilize what makes sense for you to suggest as an item that will be bought now instead of often bought together. So looking at all of this AI, hence we are looking into when is something bought together. You can also utilize the time frame of it to make some triggers. Let's take the example on the right side of the screen. I might have bought some fragrance. So instead of just recommending me popular items or popular other fragrances, we might see that, well, when people buy fragrances in week 4, they often tend to buy these type of items. You will be able to make an automation based on this data and then trigger an email to suggest the right product at the right time. This leads me kind of into a window we built to show how and what type of data we are working with. So I'll jump into it in a second here. Just give me a second. If you guys would also like to actually try it out, you are more than welcome to. Just go to explorer.helloretail.com and you can take your any URLs and try to put it into the system. And now I'll just try to go through what actually happens. So I'll just stop the screen here for a second and share another screen with you guys. There it is. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, we are.
Yeah. So please remember, this is a window. And this window is to share what type of AI attributes are we working with, how do we perceive your products, and what type of similarities do we see. Now, H&M are not our customers. So what it does is basically just, it takes the image, the title and description, and now it's converted it into a number. And then it goes down and look at, based on the item you are, which in this case is some chinos, what type of price tag do you have compared to other items within this vector of similarities? What it says is this product is a medium cheap product based on other chinos that exist around me. What you also see is that quite often people tend to return these items in week 1, and they don't tend to come back and buy the same. So this is not a recurring product or a retention product like makeup, for example. In the left corner, you just get an estimation on when people buy this, how often and do they tend to come back and buy something else, where the estimation is around 30% will come back and spend around 37 euros more. What you see as well is what type of items is quite often being bought together, in what order, and what price tag do they have. So with cheap chinos, we see quite often people buying medium cheap t-shirts and cheap chinos and khakis. So that will be that people buy 2 of those pairs, actually 3 of those pairs in different price tags. Going a bit down, you can see some sales cycles. You can see the time span again, which day of the week is it often converted, what time of the day is it often converted, and all of this data is relevant to make some triggers if you want to trigger something on emails, for example. I'm not going to focus that much on time span and the other labels here, beside just throwing out what's relevant here. And it's basically also being able to understand if you're considering adding this to a Black Week offer, what type of discount range do we often see have the highest conversion rate. What I would actually like to show is a comparison here, because now we are looking at some chinos which are medium cheap. If we take some other chinos, again, this is not our clients. This is just scraping the site, taking the image, title, and the description, and looking at what you are. So if we look at some expensive chinos, you can actually see there's not much of data around recurrence or retention for the users, but there is some data around how much they on average spend, because this is compared to what they quite often buy. If we compare, we can see in this scenario, if you buy some expensive chinos, people tend to buy dress pants, dress shirts, and some other chinos in another price tag. See for the comparison here. And all of this is important because when you start looking at shoes, you'll see a lot of different patterns around user preferences, users behavior data if you start looking at what price range you have instead of just looking at what you are. So it's quite interesting, and it's really been fruitful for our customers being able to handle any type of business that might be selling cheap items or focused on sales, focused on the price, and but also handling customers who have a brand they need to take care of. You can't just start recommending items that are relevant for us to show based on the brand affinity profile we have, etc. So it's been really an interesting journey to come to this. I'll now show you another example, and that example is basically based on retention items. And Metas is not our customer, so again, just taking some random items here to see what type of behavior do we see. If you have a medium-priced mascara, we see that people tend to buy this again in week 13. So it's up for retention there. Where if we take a mascara that's medium cheap, they tend to buy this in week 9. And also across the product which is often bought as the next items also really differs, just for the comparison. I'll recommend you all to go to Explorer, try it out for yourself. It's free for use. It's still a window, so we might, if you experience it coming back with an error that you couldn't read the page, that just means you're probably trying to avoid bots or people to scrape your price, so we can't do it as well. So just try out with different type of URLs in the explorer.helleretail.com. And if you have any feedback, we are more than happy to receive those. Seems like my time's up, Patrick.
Okay. Yeah, interesting, especially this latest part, the latter part. There's product intelligence. Well, we haven't rehearsed it beforehand, so we are a few minutes short.
I was hoping to actually, if there's any
if there are any questions, yeah.
Yeah, back to the wish is to have it more interactive. So any questions from the audience?
Nei, ikke enda. Vi nordmenn, vi er så sjenerte.
So maybe you could ask me some questions, Patrick.
Ja, jeg skulle stille et spørsmål om det du ikke snakket om, da. Men det er jo search. Er det kommet noen nyutvikling der i forhold til tidligere?
Yeah. When it comes to search, now these examples was just examples. All of this AI is built in the core of our system. So if you go back to the example with Patrick clicking at Adidas, that's great for if let's say you're working with a personalization tool which is able to show your preferences when you do a broad search, right? So for the back in time example, if you search for pants now that you click that 2 t-shirts and 1 Adidas shoe, we might see back then that we would recommend Adidas pants.
Yeah.
All of that has changed because now we're looking at the context. So if your context is that people are actually not just buying Adidas pants when you click at whatever you just did, it might be another brand as well. So we would go a bit higher with Adidas, but also maybe Under Armour, Nike, or whatever that might be relevant to increase the relevancy. And you do all of this to make sure you can quickly show what products make sense for you based on your preferences. And if we don't do that, there's a higher likelihood of you bouncing, or a higher likelihood for you to have more clicks, because then you have to click filters, then you have to find the brand you're looking for.
Men hvordan data jo, som vi skjønner, ganske viktig at det har nok besøksdata, nok trafikkdata. Hvordan stiller det seg da med den nye utviklingen med Product Intelligence? Det fremdeles
That's exactly what it's built
kravet for det jo noen krav dere har til nettbutikken, at det må være en viss omsetning, en viss mengde trafikk for at du kunne tilfredsstille og gi noen nyttig informasjon, nyttig data tilbake igjen til kunden som besøker nettbutikken.
That's a really good question. Well, basically, product intelligence can be utilized for any business. So we gotta differentiate between personalization tools like search, recommendations, ranking your categories, because all of that is built in the core of the system. But when it comes to the product intelligence, it's there to make sure if you don't have the data, we have the data to back you up. So your data will always be your truth. Patrick, if you have if you have your own store selling whatever, it could be MacBooks or computers. If you see quite often on your store, people are buying a specific item with it, we would naturally show that first, because that's your truth of source. But you might only have one keyboard shown together, and you don't have any data on people buying an adapter or some cables or what's not. That's what product intelligence have. So instead of showing only one item, we are able to show more relevant items. What other businesses also quite often experience is, because I don't have the data, I'm showing the one keyboard, and then I'm just showing the most sold items. It's back to I'm looking at a stationary computer. How has the most sold items any relations to what I'm looking at? This is also really fruitful for customers trying to add new categories or collections to the pages. You've been in your business for many years, you are wanting to increase your inventory, and now you do it, you go into a categorization you don't have, and you actually don't have any data on it. You have no purchase data around a new category which you never presented to your users. That's also where product intelligence would be really fruitful. We only have, the reality is, every time a user comes in, where you spend a lot of time, a lot of efforts, money on acquisition, if it's on your category pages or product pages, if you're not able to activate them within a few seconds, you lost the sale to your competitor. That's the reality. And it's just getting more and more expensive to have ad spend or to buy users. So everybody's, what I see quite often now when I speak with a lot of customers, it's not just about the short-term strategy. It's about working smarter. It's about making sure you increase loyalty. And what data shows is you are increasing loyalty through personalization.
Har dere sett at om konverteringen og salget i nettbutikker har ledende spørsmål? Har det økt etter at Product Intelligence
Yes,
ble lansert? Det var vel i fjor høst det ble lansert, som på for fullt, eller?
Now back to what you also said, you work with a lot of different customers. It's the same here. We work with so many different customers. So sharing an average with you might not be the correct picture, but before deploying all of this, we A/B split tested it for 6-month period, iterating the algorithms. And on average, we saw an increase in average order value around 11%. Only based on interactions. Please remember that, because we are not looking at the site's average order value. We are looking at, if you have a algorithm old shown versus algorithm new, what's the difference here?
Ja.
And the main focus was again around bought together behavior, but also what's closely related. If you go to the example I had when it was black and gray, quite often we saw again recommending alternatives which is not related to what you're looking at. I'm looking at a dress or a skirt, and now the system is recommending me products from offer page where it's sorting it based on most sold, and it's showing me shoes, maybe some jewelries or what's not. So to show what's closely related to what you're looking at by utilizing the image, the look and feel of the image, the colors of the image, the shape of the product you're looking at, the title and the description to add a context around it. In what context does this make sense? It's a slim fit, it's a maxi skirt, it's for rich usage. Is placing this into this universe of what are you?
Not
So
slim
the
fit for
universe,
me, but yeah.
oh yeah, not for me anymore as well.
Very interesting. Ja,
Yeah.
veldig, veldig bra. Så det åpner opp større muligheter for kundene. Absolutt. Og,
It's relevant because if you don't start working smarter, you're just going to lose your market share. We are not the one defining what's happening in this arena. It's the big ones. And the big ones are the one making sure what's relevant to focus on. And if you're not following, others are, and then you will just lose your market share. If not now, then later.
ja. Det som min kollega Arnstein sier, altså, han var jo toppsyklist, og han sto opp hver morgen, så tenkte han at konkurrenten kom til å trene hardere enn han. Og det ville ikke han ha noe av. Så da sa han til seg selv at denne dagen skal jeg også trene veldig hardt. Så det er jo det at konkurrentene blir jo bedre hele tiden, det er sånn man må tenke. Og det er jo det dere tenker da, med å tilby dette produktet her da, til disse nye funksjonalitetene og nye metodene, så dere kan nå tilby våre kunder.
Yeah. That's good to hear. So just quickly summarizing on what it actually solves. So if you're a business looking at expanding to new markets, you will be facing a challenge of lack of data. So would it be fruitful for you to actually look at what data you already have and compare it to other similar data, which is not exactly the item you're looking at? So for a brand store, it's not about my brand on a t-shirt because you have no data on that t-shirt maybe. It's about what is being bought together with it, what is closely related to it. But you don't have to trust it fully blind, like, oh, this is a black box. I cannot control AI. Why is this happening? We are always able to show you exactly why something is happening, but you are also able to control the outcome. This is just about understanding the human understanding around products. If you're also a business having new collections all the times, or just a lot of ghost inventory is you have maybe 80% of your inventory with no conversions or only one-time conversions. This is also really fruitful for you to be able to tap into a machine with a lot of behavior data around products.
Det er en gullgruve i mitt hode. Vi har jo kunder som vurderer å etablere seg i Sverige også. Og der, som du sier, ingen data. Men nå har de det i hermetegn. Så interessant. Ja, det var interessant og nyttig. Akkurat denne der siste delen der. Du har faktisk data, og vi kan gi deg de dataene. Den tenker jeg avrunder dette webinaret. Og hvis det er noen spørsmål, hvis noen vil ha møte med Daniel, så stiller du gladelig opp, som du har gjort for alle våre andre kunder. Og du har e-postadressen din der fremme i sted. Den ligger vel også på invitasjonen på nettsidene våre, så ligger vel kanskje også e-postadressen din. Da kan man be om møte, eller sende en melding til meg, så fikser jeg det at Daniel og du ringer til kun avtale tid, presentasjon.
That's a deal.
Ja, jeg vil også gjerne, hvis jeg får lov, kan jeg jo få lov å være med i det møtet. Og lære mer. For det er en ting.
Velkommen.
Ja, det er jo en ting som har gjort at jeg fremdeles jobber her, det er at det er alltid noe nytt hele tiden. Noe nytt og spennende, krevende. En krevende jobb, og det gjør jo at man må være på tå hev. Og det hjelper jo dere i Hello Retail også med å bli og være.
Indeed, we have new things coming up as well. I'm not allowed to share exactly what it is, but there are new things coming up very soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Spennende. Takk for nå.
Takk for nå, Patrick.
Ja, da snakkes vi. Kan vi ringes etterpå? Kan vi ta på Teams? Jeg sender en melding.
Ja.
Yes,
Ja,
good. Yes.
Thank you everyone for joining.
Hei, hei.
Hei.